The morning air on planet Kepler 442b smelled like sweet flowers and metal. Inside the big glass building of Galactic Academy, students from many different worlds sat in their floating chairs. Some had blue skin with 6 arms. Others looked like floating clouds of light. A few had rocks for bodies that sparkled in the classroom light. Professor F7 moved her 8 long arms as she walked to the front of the room. Her purple skin was darker than usual today. She looked worried. The students could tell something was wrong. They stopped talking and looked at her with their many different types of eyes. "I have important news from the Intergalactic Council," Professor F7 said. Her voice was soft but serious. "They met yesterday on the big space station near the center of our galaxy." Crix, a tall student with skin like blue glass, leaned forward in his chair. His crystal body made tiny ringing sounds when he moved. Next to him, Yara floated like a silver cloud. She had no solid body at all. She was made of tiny stars and space dust that moved like water. "The council has made a new rule," the professor said. She picked up a small device and pressed a button. Words appeared in the air above her head in bright letters. "From today forward, humans from planet Earth cannot come to any of our schools. They cannot join any of our learning programs. They cannot work with us on any projects." The classroom was quiet for 3 seconds. Then Crick started laughing. His crystal body flashed with bright colors as he laughed harder and harder. Soon other students joined him. "Those stupid Earth creatures," Crick said between laughs. "They can barely use simple machines. Why would we want them here anyway?" Yara made a sound like wind chimes, laughing. Her cloudy body turned pink with joy. "I saw videos of them once. They cry when they are sad. They get angry over tiny things. They are like children who never grew up." 2 students who looked exactly the same sat in the back row. They were called the Torgan twins. Their bodies were made of orange rock with veins of gold running through them. They usually did not talk much, but now they were smiling. "Humans think with their feelings instead of their brains," one twin said. "Yes, they make choices based on what feels good, not what makes sense," said the other twin. More students began to laugh and make jokes. A student with green fur and 4 legs stood up on his chair. "I heard humans still fight wars over things like land and resources. How stupid is that? We solved those problems thousands of years ago." A small blue creature with many eyes spoke up. "My cousin visited Earth once. He said humans waste time doing things just to make other humans happy, even when it does not help them at all. What kind of logic is that?" Professor F7 watched her students laugh and make fun of humans. She felt uncomfortable. Her 8 arms moved nervously as she tried to think of what to say. She had taught at this school for 40 years. She had seen students from hundreds of different worlds. Most of them were smart and kind. But today they seemed cruel. "Perhaps we should not judge them so quickly," she said, but her voice was too quiet. The students did not hear her over their laughter. Crick stood up and his crystal body grew brighter. "I bet they could not even pass our basic math class. They probably still count with their fingers and toes." "They have only 2 arms and 2 legs," Yara said, changing her shape to look like a human. She made herself look clumsy and stupid. "Look at me. I am a human. I can only think about food and sleep and other boring things." All the students laughed harder. Even the shy ones in the front row were giggling. Professor F7 felt her hearts beating faster. She had 2 hearts like all her people. Right now, both hearts felt heavy. "Enough," she said, but not very loudly. She did not want to make her students angry. "Please sit down and be quiet." Slowly, the laughter stopped. The students sat back in their chairs, but they kept smiling and whispering to each other. Crix and Yara high-fived each other with sounds like bells ringing. Professor F7 looked at the message from the council again. There was more information, but it was marked as secret. Only teachers could read it. The message said the decision was made after watching something called classified footage. It also said all 847 different alien governments agreed with the ban. Every single one of them voted yes. This surprised her. Usually the council argued about everything. Some governments liked humans. Others did not care about them. A few thought humans were interesting, but this time everyone agreed. That had never happened before in the history of the council. "Why do you think the council made this rule?" she asked her students. "Because humans are too primitive," Crick said quickly. "They would slow down our classes." "Because they are too emotional," Yara added. "They would cry during tests." "Because they start fights over stupid things," said one of the Torgan twins. Professor F7 nodded, but she did not feel good about their answers. Deep in her mind, she wondered if there was more to the story. The council did not usually spend time talking about primitive species. There were thousands of worlds with creatures much less developed than humans. Why make a special rule just for Earth people? She looked at her students one more time. They were still smiling and making quiet jokes about humans. She decided not to tell them about the secret footage today. Maybe tomorrow she would be ready to show them the truth. The class bell rang with a soft musical sound. Students began to pack their things and float toward the door. As they left, she heard them planning to make more jokes about humans during lunch. Professor Zef7 sat alone in her empty classroom. Outside the big windows, she could see 3 different colored suns in the sky. She thought about the secret message from the council. What could be in that footage that made 847 different alien governments afraid of humans? 3 days passed after Professor Zef7 told her students about the human ban. The news had spread all over Galactic Academy like wildfire. Every student was talking about it. Every teacher heard the jokes. Even the cleaning robot seemed to beep in a way that sounded like laughter. Crix had become famous on the school network. His crystal body flashed with pride as other students came to hear his jokes about humans. He stood in the middle of the big cafeteria during lunchtime. Around him sat students from 20 different worlds, all waiting to hear what he would say next. "I found out more about humans," Crix announced. His voice rang like music through the room. "They have something called emotions that control their thinking. When they are scared, they cannot think clearly. When they are angry, they make bad choices. When they are sad, they just sit and do nothing." The students around him made sounds of amazement. A snake-like creature with silver scales shook her head. How did they even build machines if they cannot control their own minds? "That is the funny part," Crix said. His crystal face seemed to smile. "It took them thousands of years to learn what we learned in hundreds. They kept starting wars and destroying their own work." Yara floated down from the ceiling. Her cloudy body was bright yellow with excitement. "I have been studying their history. They still have something called money. They work all day just to get pieces of paper or metal coins. Then they trade these papers for food and houses." All the students laughed. A round creature with 12 legs rolled back and forth with joy. "Money? We got rid of that silly idea ages ago. Everything just belongs to everyone. Why would you need to trade papers?" "Because they do not trust each other," Yara explained. "They think other humans will take their things, so they have to buy and sell everything." The Torgan twins walked over to the group. Their rock bodies made heavy footsteps on the metal floor. They had been working on something all morning. Now they carried a small device between them. "We built something," said the first twin. "Show them," said the second twin. They pressed a button on their device. Suddenly, a small human shape appeared in the air above the table. The hologram looked real. It had brown hair and wore simple clothes. But something was wrong with it. The human was making big arm movements and opening its mouth very wide. "This is how humans talk when they are excited," the first twin explained. "They wave their arms around like this." The hologram began moving its arms up and down and side to side, "and they make their voices very loud," added the second twin. The hologram opened its mouth wider and seemed to be shouting, though no sound came out. All the students watching began to copy the movements. Soon the whole cafeteria was filled with alien students waving their arms and opening their mouths wide. They thought this was the funniest thing they had ever seen. A teacher with blue tentacles walked by their table. She stopped and looked at what they were doing. "What is this?" she asked. "We are acting like humans," Crix explained proudly. "This is how they behave when they get emotional." The teacher watched for a moment. She did not smile. "Have you ever actually seen a human?" she asked quietly. The students stopped moving their arms. They looked at each other. None of them had ever met a real human. They had only seen videos and read reports about them. "Well, no," Crix said, "but everyone knows how they act." The teacher's tentacles moved slowly. "I see," she said. Then she walked away without saying anything else. But the students did not care what the teacher thought. They went back to their jokes and games. By the end of lunch, half the school was copying their human impressions. After classes ended that day, Crix had a new idea. He went to his room and turned on his computer. He started typing a message to send to the school network. "I am starting a new group," he wrote. "It is called #HumanLogicFails. Send me stories about stupid things humans do. Send me videos of them being emotional. Send me anything that shows how primitive they are." He pressed send and waited. Within 1 hour, he had 50 messages. Within 3 hours, he had 300. Students from all over the academy were sending him jokes and stories about humans. One student sent a video of humans crying during something called a wedding. Look how they leak water from their eyes just because two people decided to live together, the message said. Another student shared a story about humans who risked their lives to save small animals during floods. They could have saved more important things, but they chose to save creatures that cannot even think, the note explained. A third student found records of humans who gave away their money to help strangers. This makes no sense at all. Why would you give your resources to someone you do not even know? Crix read every message. He laughed at each one. He picked the best ones and shared them with the whole school network. Soon students on other planets were joining his group. The hashtag human logic fails became popular on 12 different worlds. Meanwhile, Yara was working on her own project. She could change her shape into anything she wanted. She spent hours watching old videos of humans to learn how to copy them perfectly. Then she would float around the school hallways pretending to be a confused human student. "Where's my classroom?" she would ask in a high, squeaky voice. "I am lost and scared. Please help me." Then she would pretend to cry, making water drops fall from her fake eyes. Other students loved her performances. They would follow her around the school, watching her act confused and emotional. Some students started recording her shows to send to friends on other planets. The Torgan twins were not satisfied with just making jokes. They wanted to do something bigger. They went to the school's computer lab and started building a program. It was a game where players could pretend to be aliens trying to teach math to humans. The humans in the game will get confused very easily, explained the first twin to their friends. They will start crying if the math gets too hard, added the second twin. And if you try to explain logic to them, they will get angry and stop listening. They worked on their game every evening after classes. Other students would come and watch them write the code. Everyone was excited to try the game when it was finished. But while all this was happening, Professor Zef7 sat in her office reading the secret files about humans. The more she read, the more worried she became. The documents were not what she expected. They did not talk about humans being stupid or primitive. Instead, they talked about something much more serious. Something that made her 8 arms shake as she read. Something that made her want to run to her classroom right now and stop her students from making their jokes. But it was late at night, and the students were all in their rooms, probably making more plans to mock humans tomorrow. Professor Zef7 closed the files and looked out her window at the 3 moons in the dark sky. Tomorrow, she decided, she would have to show her students the truth, even if they did not want to see it. Professor Zef7 walked into her classroom the next morning with heavy steps. Her 8 arms carried a special device that she had never used before. It was black and covered with warning signs in red letters. The device contained the secret footage that the Intergalactic Council had sent to all teachers. She had not slept all night. After reading the files, she knew she had to show her students the truth. But she was scared. The footage was marked with the highest level of warning. It said extreme psychological content in big red letters. It also said may cause lasting changes in viewer behavior. The students came into the room laughing and talking about their latest jokes. Crix's crystal body was flashing bright colors as he told everyone about the new messages he got on his hashtag human logic fails page. Yara floated near the ceiling, practicing her human crying sounds for her next performance. "I got 5,000 new followers last night," Crix announced to his friends. "Students from 40 different planets are sharing my human jokes now." The Torgan twins sat in their usual seats in the back. They were excited because they had finished their game. "Tonight we will let everyone play our human teaching simulator," the first twin said. "It will be so funny to watch people try to teach math to pretend humans," said the second twin, Professor. Zef7 set the black device on her desk. The room became quiet as students noticed her serious face. Her purple skin looked almost gray today. Her 8 arms were shaking slightly. "Before you continue making jokes about humans," she said in a voice that was quieter than usual, "I think you should see something." She pressed a button on the device. The lights in the room became dim. The walls disappeared and suddenly the students felt like they were floating in space. This was the most advanced hologram system in the school. It made everything look and feel completely real. "What you are about to see," Professor Zef7 said, "is the real footage that made the Intergalactic Council decide to ban humans from our schools." Crix leaned forward in his chair. His crystal body stopped flashing. "Are we going to see how stupid they are?" he asked with excitement. "Just watch," the professor said. The space around them changed. Suddenly, they were looking down at planet Earth. They could see blue oceans and white clouds, green and brown land masses stretched across the surface. It looked like a beautiful world. The footage begins on Earth during what humans call natural disasters, Professor F7 explained. The scene changed. Now they were looking at a human city, but something was wrong. Orange and red flames were everywhere. Buildings were on fire. Thick black smoke filled the air. The students could hear sounds of crackling flames and people shouting. A human figure ran toward the burning buildings. He wore special clothes and carried equipment on his back. His face was covered with a mask, but they could see his eyes. The eyes looked determined and brave. "This human is called a firefighter," Professor F7 said. "Watch what he does." The firefighter ran straight into a burning building. The alien students watched in confusion. Why would anyone run toward danger? A few minutes later, the firefighter came out carrying a small human child. The child was unconscious and covered in smoke. The firefighter gave the child to other humans who were waiting outside. Then he turned around and ran back into the burning building. "Why did he go back?" asked Yara. Her cloudy body had turned from bright yellow to pale white. "Keep watching," Professor F7 said. The firefighter came out again with an old human female. She could barely walk. He carried her to safety. Then he went back into the building again, and again, and again. Each time he brought out another human who could not escape on their own. On his 6th trip into the burning building, part of the roof fell down. The students watched as the firefighter was trapped under heavy pieces of burning wood. Other firefighters ran in to save him, but it was too late. The building collapsed. The alien students sat in silence. They had just watched a human die while trying to save strangers, people he had never met before, people who could not give him anything in return. "I do not understand," Crick said slowly. His crystal body had become completely clear, like glass. Why did he keep going back? He could have run away after saving the first person. Before Professor F7 could answer, the scene changed again. Now they were looking at a different part of Earth. There was water everywhere. A huge flood had covered a human town. Houses were underwater. Cars floated like toys in the brown, muddy water. In the middle of the flood, they saw a group of humans standing in a line. They were holding hands, making a chain from the dry land to a house that was almost completely underwater. The water was moving very fast and very dangerously. The human at the end of the chain, closest to the dangerous water, was trying to reach a window where they could see other humans trapped inside. But the water was too deep and too fast. If he let go of the chain, he would be swept away and drown. The students watched as the human at the end made a choice. He let go of the chain and swam toward the trapped humans. The fast water immediately grabbed him and pulled him away. But in those few seconds before the water took him, he managed to throw a rope to the people in the house. The people in the house used the rope to escape. They all survived. But the human who threw the rope was carried away by the flood. The other humans in the chain tried to save him, but the water was too strong. He knew he would probably die, Professor F7 said quietly, but he did it anyway. The Torgan twins stopped whispering to each other. Their orange rock bodies seemed to have lost their golden veins. "This does not make logical sense," the first twin said. "Self-preservation is the most basic instinct," said the second twin. "Why would they ignore it?" The footage continued. The next scene showed humans during what Professor F7 called a pandemic. A dangerous sickness had spread all over their world. The humans who got sick had to stay in buildings called hospitals. The students saw humans wearing white clothes working in these hospitals. They were doctors and nurses. These humans spent all day and all night taking care of the sick people. They knew that being close to sick humans meant they might get sick too. They knew they might die, but they stayed anyway. The footage showed doctors working for days without rest. It showed nurses holding the hands of dying patients so they would not die alone. It showed humans bringing food and medicine to sick people, even when it meant risking their own lives. Many of the doctors and nurses did get sick. Some of them died. But other humans came to take their place. And when those humans got sick, more humans came. They never stopped helping each other. Yara had floated down from the ceiling. She was now sitting in a chair like the other students. Her cloudy body was very small and dim. "I do not understand any of this," she whispered. "None of this is logical," Crick said. His voice was different now, not loud and confident like before. They are destroying themselves to help others. This is not smart behavior. Professor F7 looked around at her students. Their faces showed confusion and worry. The joking and laughing had completely stopped. There is more, she said. Much more. The footage kept playing. It showed humans saving animals from floods even though the animals could not thank them. It showed humans sharing their food with hungry strangers, even when they did not have much food themselves. It showed humans building schools and hospitals in poor areas, using their own money and time to help people they would never meet. Every scene showed the same thing. Humans choosing to help others, even when it cost them something important, even when it was dangerous, even when they got nothing back. By the time the footage ended, the classroom was completely silent. No one was making jokes anymore. No one was laughing. The students sat in their chairs, staring at the empty space where the holograms had been. Now you know, Professor F7 said. This is why the council banned humans from our schools. Not because they are stupid. Not because they are primitive. But because of what you just saw. She looked at each of her students. Tomorrow I will show you the rest of the footage, and you will understand why 847 different governments were afraid of these humans. The class bell rang, but none of the students moved. They sat in their chairs thinking about what they had seen. Finally, one by one, they slowly left the classroom. Crix was the last to leave. As he walked past Professor F7's desk, he stopped. Professor, he said quietly, what we saw? Is that normal for humans? Yes, Crix, she replied. That is exactly normal for humans. Crix's crystal body flickered once, then went completely dark. The next morning, the classroom felt different. Students came in quietly. No one was laughing or making jokes. Crix's crystal body was still dim and colorless. Yara floated low to the ground instead of dancing near the ceiling. The Torgan twins sat with their heads down, their golden veins barely glowing. Professor F7 noticed that some students had not come to class at all. She had heard that many students spent the whole night thinking about the footage they saw yesterday. Some had deleted their human joke posts from the school network. Others had stopped working on their anti-human projects. Yesterday you saw humans helping each other during disasters, Professor F7 said as she turned on the hologram device again. Today you will see the rest of the footage. You will learn why the council really banned humans from our schools. The room became dark again. The holographic space appeared around them. This time they found themselves looking at a human school on Earth. It was a small building with young humans inside. The students could hear laughing and talking. Everything seemed normal and happy. Suddenly the ground began to shake. Books fell from shelves. Windows cracked. The building was moving back and forth like a toy in the hands of a giant. This is what humans call an earthquake, Professor F7 explained. The ground moves and buildings can fall down. The alien students watched as panic filled the human school. The young humans were screaming and running in all directions. But then they saw something that made them lean forward in their seats. A female human teacher, older than the rest, stood up in the middle of the chaos. Instead of running toward the exit like everyone else, she moved toward a group of small humans who had fallen down and could not get up. The ceiling above her head was cracking. Pieces of it were starting to fall. The alien students could see that the whole roof was about to come down. The teacher could see it too. She looked up at the cracks, then looked at the small humans on the ground. She made her choice. The teacher covered the small humans with her own body just as the ceiling collapsed. Heavy pieces of stone and metal fell down on top of her. The small humans she protected lived. She did not. Yara made a sound like wind crying. She knew what would happen, Yara whispered. She saw the ceiling falling and she knew it would kill her. Yes, Professor F7 said sadly. She knew. The footage continued. They saw more scenes like this. Humans making the same choice over and over again, always choosing to save others even when it meant they would die. But then the footage changed to show something different. The students found themselves looking at a group of human scientists working in a laboratory. These humans wore white coats and worked with complicated machines. These humans discovered a medicine that could save millions of lives, Professor F7 explained. Watch what they do with this discovery. The alien students expected to see the humans sell the medicine for huge amounts of money. That is what their own people would do. A medicine that valuable could make someone rich for their entire life. But that is not what happened. Instead, they watched as the human scientists shared all their information with other humans around the world. They sent the formula to every country on Earth. They did not ask for money. They did not keep the secret for themselves. They gave it away for free so that everyone could make the medicine and save lives. The Torgan twins looked at each other with wide eyes. Their people were traders and business experts. The idea of giving away something so valuable made no sense to them. "This is impossible," the first twin said. "They spent years working on this medicine. They could have become the richest humans on their planet. Instead, they gave it away for nothing," said the second twin. "Our people would never do this." "No people would do this." Professor Zef7 nodded. "That is exactly the problem," she said. The footage continued to show more examples. Humans sharing food during famines even when they were hungry themselves. Humans teaching others how to build clean water systems, even in areas where it would compete with their own businesses. Humans donating their organs to save strangers, even though it meant they would die. With each new scene, the alien students became more confused and upset. This was not how intelligent life was supposed to behave. Every species in the galaxy understood the basic rule. Take care of yourself first, then help others if you have extra resources left over. But humans seem to have this rule backward. "I want to show you one more piece of footage," Professor Zef7 said. "This is the recording that made the council vote for the ban." The scene changed to show the inside of a human spaceship. There were 6 humans inside, traveling through space far from Earth. They were on a mission to study other planets and collect samples of plant life. Something had gone wrong with their ship. The alien students could see that the ship was damaged and losing air. The humans had only one escape pod, but it was very small. Only 2 people could fit inside it. The 6 humans sat together and talked about what to do. The alien students listened to their conversation. "We could draw names from a hat," said one human. "Or the 2 youngest should go, because they have the most life left to live," said another. "Maybe the 2 with families should go, because people are waiting for them on Earth," said a third. But then one human pointed to a special container in their ship. Inside were seeds and samples from plants that were about to go extinct on Earth. These were the last samples of these plants in the universe. "If we save ourselves, these plants will die forever," the human said. "But if we put the plant samples in the escape pod, they will make it back to Earth safely." The other humans nodded. "The samples are more important than we are," another human agreed. The alien students watched in shock as all 6 humans worked together to put the plant samples in the escape pod instead of saving themselves. They launched the pod toward Earth, knowing that they would die when their ship ran out of air. The footage ended with the 6 humans sitting peacefully together, waiting to die. They were not crying or screaming. They looked calm and even happy because they knew the plants would survive. The classroom was silent for a long time after the footage ended. Finally, Crick spoke up. His voice was so quiet that everyone had to lean forward to hear him. "They chose plants over their own lives," he said. "They saved things that could not even think or feel grateful." "It makes no sense," Yara said. Her cloud body was now so pale it was almost invisible. "Every rule of survival says this is wrong." Professor Zef7 looked around at her students. She could see the confusion and distress in all their faces. This was exactly what the council had been afraid of. "Now I will tell you the real reason for the ban," she said. "The council did not ban humans because they are stupid or primitive. They banned humans because they are too good." The student stared at her. "What do you mean?" asked the first Torgan twin. "I mean that watching this footage, seeing how humans behave, it makes other species feel bad about themselves," Professor Zef7 explained. When the council showed this footage to leaders from all 847 governments, many of them became very upset. They started asking questions about their own behavior. She walked around the room as she talked. They asked, "Why do we not help others the way humans do? Why do we think about ourselves first? Are we less good than these humans?" The council's psychologists did studies. They found that 73% of alien species who watched this footage developed what they called existential crisis syndrome. They started feeling bad about their own moral development. Yara floated up a little higher. "So they banned humans not to protect us from them, but to protect us from feeling bad about ourselves?" "Exactly," Professor Zef7 said. The council decided that human behavior was too psychologically disruptive to normal educational environments. They were afraid that if aliens studied with humans, They would start trying to act like humans, and the council believed this would be dangerous. Crix's crystal body flickered with a dim light. Dangerous? How is helping others dangerous? Professor Zef7 was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The council believes that too much caring about others makes a species weak. They think humans will eventually destroy themselves because they care more about others than about their own survival." She looked at each of her students. "But after watching this footage, I am not sure the council is right. Maybe humans are not the weak ones. Maybe they have learned something that the rest of us have forgotten." The class bell rang, but again no one moved. The students sat thinking about everything they had seen and heard. Finally, Crix stood up slowly. "Professor," he said, "if humans are banned from our schools, how can we learn what they know?" Professor Zef7 smiled sadly. "That, Crix, is exactly the question I have been asking myself." For 3 days after seeing the last footage, the students did not come to class. Professor Zef7 sat alone in her empty classroom, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. Maybe the council was right. Maybe some truths were too dangerous to share. On the 4th day, Crix appeared at her classroom door. His crystal body was different now. Instead of the bright, flashy colors he used to show off, his body glowed with a soft, steady light. Behind him came Yara, floating quietly near the ground. Then the Torgan twins walked in, their golden veins pulsing slowly like gentle heartbeats. One by one, other students followed. They filled the classroom, but it was nothing like before. No one was laughing or making jokes. They sat quietly looking at Professor Zef7 with serious faces. "Professor," Crix said, standing up slowly, "we have been thinking about everything you showed us. We have some questions." "Ask me anything," she replied. "The first question is simple," Crix said. "Were those videos real? Did those things really happen?" "Yes," Professor Zef7 answered. "Every scene you saw was recorded by human cameras. These were not actors or stories. These were real humans doing real things." Yara floated up a little higher. "So humans really do choose to help others even when it hurts them or kills them?" "Yes. And they really do share their discoveries and medicines for free even when they could become rich?" "Yes," the first Torgan twin leaned forward. "And they really do save plants and animals instead of saving themselves?" "Yes," Professor Zef7 said again. "This is how humans normally behave. Not all of them, but most of them." The students were quiet for a long moment. Then the second Torgan twin asked the question that Professor Zef7 had been expecting. "If humans are this good, why are we making fun of them? Why are we the ones in advanced schools while they are banned?" Professor Zef7 took a deep breath. "Because the galaxy is afraid of them," she said. "The council thinks that human behavior is dangerous. They think that if other species learn to act like humans, it will make them weak." "But what if the council is wrong?" Crix asked. His crystal body was glowing brighter now. "What if humans are not weak? What if they are actually stronger than us?" A small blue student with many eyes raised one of her arms. "I have been thinking about this too," she said. "We always say we are more advanced than humans. But what does advanced really mean?" "We have better technology," said another student. "We can travel between stars faster," said another. "We live longer lives," said a third. But Yara shook her cloudy head. "All of those things are about taking care of ourselves," she said. "But humans take care of each other. Maybe that is more advanced than anything we do." The room became very quiet. Students looked at each other with new understanding in their eyes. They were starting to see something that the council had tried to hide from them. "I want to tell you all something," Crix said, standing up again. "Yesterday I deleted my #HumanLogicFails page. I deleted all the jokes and mean posts about humans. I sent messages to everyone who followed me, telling them they should delete their posts too." Several students gasped. Crix's page had been seen by millions of aliens across dozens of planets. "Why did you do that?" asked one of the Torgan twins. Crix's crystal body flashed once, brightly. "Because I was wrong. We were all wrong. Humans are not stupid or primitive. They are better than us, and instead of learning from them, we were making fun of them." Yara floated down to sit next to Crix. "I stopped doing my human impression shows too," she said. "I realized that every time I pretended to cry like a human, I was making fun of their ability to care about things. But caring is not stupid. Caring is beautiful." The Torgan twins stood up together. "We destroyed our human teaching simulator game," the first twin said. We realized that the game was teaching people that emotions and kindness are bad things, said the second twin. But they are not bad things. They are the most important things. Professor Zef7 felt her two hearts beating faster. She had hoped her students would understand, but she had not expected this. More students began to speak up. The small blue creature with many eyes said, I sent messages to my family on my home planet. I told them about the human videos. I asked them if we could learn to be more like humans. A student with green fur said, I started reading about human philosophy and religion. They have so many ideas about how to help others and make the world better. I have been studying human art and music, said another student. They create beautiful things not just for themselves, but to share feelings with others. Professor Zef7 watched as student after student talked about how the human videos had changed their thinking. They were not just feeling bad about themselves. They were inspired to become better. There is something I want to do, Crix announced. But I need everyone's help. What is it? Asked Yara. I want to write a letter to the Intergalactic Council. I want to ask them to change the human ban. The room became very quiet. Writing to the council was a serious thing. Students were not supposed to question the council's decisions. What would the letter say? Asked Professor Zef7. Crix thought for a moment. It would say that we have seen the footage of humans. It would say that we understand why the council banned them, but it would also say that we think the ban is wrong. The letter would explain that if we are truly advanced species, we should be able to learn from humans instead of being afraid of them, Yara added. It would say that hiding from good examples does not make us stronger. It makes us weaker, said the first Torgan twin. And it would ask the council to let humans come to our schools, so we can learn how to be better people, said the second twin. Professor Zef7 looked around at her students. A few days ago, they had been making cruel jokes about humans. Now they wanted to petition the most powerful government in the galaxy to change a decision that 847 different species had agreed on. Do you all agree with this? She asked the class. Every single student raised their hand, arm, tentacle, or whatever body part they used to show agreement. Then let's write this letter together, Professor Zef7 said. They spent the rest of the class working on the letter. Every student contributed ideas. They wrote about what they had learned from the human footage. They wrote about how seeing human kindness had made them want to be kinder too. They wrote about how they thought the galaxy could become a better place if everyone learned from human examples. When the letter was finished, every student signed it. Then Professor Zef7 added her name at the bottom. What happens now? Asked Crix. Now we send this letter to every government in the galaxy, Professor Zef7 said. We share it on every network and every planet. We let everyone see what we have learned about humans. And what if the council gets angry at us? Asked Yara. Professor Zef7 smiled. Then we will face that anger together, because that is what humans would do. Within hours of sending the letter, responses began coming back. Some government leaders were angry, just as they expected, but many others were curious. They wanted to see the footage for themselves. They wanted to understand what had changed the students' minds so completely. The letter was shared on thousands of planets. It was translated into hundreds of languages. Alien news stations talked about it. Philosophers debated it. Religious leaders discussed it in their temples. Some aliens agreed with the students. They said humans should be allowed in schools. Others disagreed and said the ban should stay. But everyone was talking about the same questions. What does it mean to be advanced? Is it better to be smart or to be good? Can a species be truly civilized if they only care about themselves? 3 months later, the Intergalactic Council announced that they would hold a new vote about the human ban. They would review all the evidence again, including the students' letter and the discussions it had started across the galaxy. Professor Zef7 stood in front of her class on the day of the announcement. Her students looked different now. They still came from many different worlds and looked like many different creatures, but they all had something new in their eyes, something that looked like hope. Whatever the council decides, she told them, you have already won something important. You have learned that being truly advanced means more than having better technology or living longer lives. It means caring about others as much as you care about yourself. Crix raised his hand. Professor, what if the council votes to keep the ban? Professor Zef7 thought for a moment. Then we will keep learning about humans anyway. We will study their books and their history. We will try to understand their way of thinking. And maybe someday we will become the kind of species that humans would be proud to know. The students smiled, as much as their different faces allowed them to smile. They had started this journey making fun of humans. Now they were trying to become more like them. And across the galaxy, millions of other aliens were starting to ask themselves the same question. In a universe full of intelligent species, which ones were truly wise?